Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Babu's Frickin' Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us in our galaxy far, far away. As always, my name is Mike Chiatti Ruby. We're breaking from our live format this week because there's one faction more powerful than the Jedi or the Sith, the NFL. So rather than try to compete with conference championships, we've recorded a night early. As always, I'm joined by Grand Moff Mark Valentine. Mark, who do you have in winning in tomorrow's games?
I have no idea. I just don't know. I have not been watching enough football. I am a fan of football, but I have not watched the NFL for at least 3 years. Forgive me, I'm a Giants fan. So I'm a glutton. It's like the
Oh,
old
yeah.
So even
No,
when you watch the Giants, you're not actually watching NFL football.
it's true.
No, growing up Giants fans, Mark and I know that if there's one team in the NFL that can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, it is the New York Giants.
It's true. It's true. I actually grew up a San Francisco 49ers fan until my family razzed me enough into accepting the New York Giants as my football team. In 1986, I was not, however, a New York Giants fan. I was a Joe Montana fan. So I would say go San Fran.
Go San Fran. Rounding out the Jedi Council, none other than Brian Joe Yowza Lee.
Yeah.
Brian, who gets through to the Super Bowl, Brian?
Hart says Bengals. And honestly, being a Broncos fan, I have a rooting interest in Von Miller for the Rams or Kyle Shanahan for the Niners. So honestly, I don't care there. I'd love Von Miller to get another one. So Hart says Rams, Bengals, just anybody but the Chiefs.
Yeah, my heart says Niners and Bengals for something different, and because being out in San Fran, I'd love to see the Niners get there, but I think my head says Chiefs and Rams. Yeah. So
I would like to see a Niners Bengals rematch, if only to get maybe some nostalgia icky shuffle breaking out in the coming weeks as we wait for the Super Bowl.
Wizard. All right. That's enough of that. The only competition to speak about right now is that of the House of Fett and the Pike Syndicate. But first, if you like what you hear, hit the like button, subscribe, and best of all, share with your friends. And now, the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 5, The Return of the Mandalorian. There's so much to discuss in this episode, guys. We're going to spend our full time discussing it. So although our droid draft last week was most excellent, most wizard indeed, go back and check it out if you haven't listened. This week, we're all in on Episode 5. And in the words of SNL's Stefan, this episode has everything. Mandalorians, TIE bombers, Terminators, ritualistic duels, slaughterhouse beheadings, infinite space cities, human-Jawa relations, and more Phantom Menace callbacks than you can shake a gonk droid at. So, guys, let's forego the Mudhorn eggs this week. This episode was like one giant Easter egg. So one giant Suka. So because of that, we know we've got something great here. And within the first 5 minutes, as promised in the title, we had the return of Mando, Din Djarin the Mandalorian, and the Darksaber, and off we went. It was there was no waiting. It was just like, boom, one giant helping of everything we could have ever wanted. First impressions, and then impressions of the overall episode. Brian, let's start with you this week. How was the return of the Mandalorian for you?
It is shocking to me that as far as technology has advanced in the world of Star Wars, meatpacking plants are the same and will always be the same forever and for always. That really caught me off guard. But other than that, man, he didn't miss a step. Like seeing Din Djarin on my screen, seeing his silhouette, you could see the spear. You're like, we teased it last week. We are starting right there. Little did we know we'd spend all 50 minutes of the episode with the guy. I was in heaven this entire episode, and we are going to talk about it. My only question is why now? Why in this show did all of this take place? And I think we're going to be able to make sense of it in 2 weeks, but we don't know yet. But I loved everything about this episode.
It was kind of like a pilot episode or an episode season, or an episode 1 for season 3. Like, it's almost like they could have done this after Boba Fett.
Well, it was almost like it was episode 1 and 2. Like, if this was part of the Mandalorian, like, we would have spent one episode on Halo, and we would have spent the other episode on Tatooine fixing up the ship. Like, they put a lot into this one episode, and
that's entirely possible. Yeah, I'm with you. I was smiling ear to ear the entire episode, and I love that the tone was so different from beginning to end as well, where it was serious, action, intense, deep mythology of Mandalore, and then it was almost a sitcom for the second half when he's on Tatooine building the starfighter with Pelimato. Mark, what's your overall take on episode 5?
We spent a lot of time speculating, and at the speculation that they said that somehow this was going to connect to the Mandalorian, or it was going to be season 2.5. And I think I said direct quote, I'm curious as to how that's going to happen. Here's how it happens. You make just an entire episode about the Mandalorian, and then you just pull in Fennec Shand in the last like 30 seconds to a minute of the episode. This is a great bridge to what we're going to get in season 3. I don't know if we're going to get any more of Mando in this season, or how much more we're going to get of Mando in the season of Book of Boba Fett. But I mean, I hate to say it and put it this way, but tonally, it was nice to get that change of pace. It was nice to get a little dark, and to see a Mandalorian that had no scruples and was cutting people in half and chopping off heads and slicing carcasses of beef along with Clatoonians with it. It was a lot of fun. I really liked Din Djarin. I said to Brian, and I stand by this hot take: Din Djarin is greater than Boba Fett now, in my heart, and that was what cemented how I feel about him as a character.
Was it weird to you guys though that
Yes.
the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett had no Boba Fett and only mentioned his name once?
Yes.
Yeah, but why? Like, there's a reason for this. Like, I think sometimes we as Star Wars fans like to think we've outsmarted the man of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Like, there's a reason for what they're doing. Like, we still, Din Djarin doesn't want the Darksaber. Like, how does this end with Boba Fett being the one who rules Mandalore? Like, is that where this is headed? Is that why this is included as part of the Book of Boba Fett? I'm not sure it's not. I mean, it wouldn't make a ton of sense. I think I would like Din Djarin to be the guy, but Boba Fett's been the guy for 40 years. Like, why was it included in this show? And I think there's a reason for it.
I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, I felt like throughout this whole thing, they kept setting up the fact that it's Din who's going to go back and fulfill the prophecy and ride the mythosaur and go into back to the mines, redeem himself in the eyes of the Mandalorians, raise the mythosaur, and unite the clans. But you bring up an interesting point. They've set up this entire backstory with Boba on Tatooine and him understanding what does it mean to have a tribe and what does it mean to have people there. That's actually a really interesting idea that maybe they're going to keep us guessing about who the great uniter is going to be, but maybe Boba really is the right guy to be leading the Mandalorians because he understands what it means to actually care for people and bring people together. I mean, Mark, what do you think of Brian's theory? I'm kind of stoked by it.
I'm going to tell you this right now, Brian. If that is correct, then we have it. It's recorded for all posterity. I am going to plaster this all over the internet. And you're a genius. You are the Nostradamus of the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett.
I don't think that that's what's going on. But at the same time, like, think about at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, where Bo-Katan will not take the Darksaber from Din Djarin, and everybody's like, well, this is stupid. Like, she took it from Ahsoka. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, Filoni doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's not being consistent. It turns out that her taking it from Ahsoka was what at least the armorer claims is the entire fall of Mandalore, and that was essential to this entire story. And seeing the Night of 1,000 Tears, the fall of Mandalore, the purge of Mandalore, I didn't expect to get that at all. Like, so it is setting up season 3 of The Mandalorian. How involved is Boba Fett going to be? I really don't know, but there's a reason that this episode was part of this show and not the premiere of season 3, and I just can't put my finger on it yet.
Well, hopefully all shall be revealed. What was definitely revealed, I like that segue, guys, is Bryce Dallas Howard came to play, y'all. Bowed down to the queen. Bryce Dallas Howard has proven that she is an exceptional director. most certainly of Star Wars, but I think give her anything at this point, she can do it. She has directed 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, which we've talked about before, including a standout episode from last season, where they introduced Bo-Katan. I'm floored by what she did with this episode. The emotional depth, the humor, the action scenes. She was just showing off that, it's been pointed out, and I didn't realize it the first time I watched the episode. She took on kind of a classic film auteur, trope, and she pulls off in that beginning sequence what's called a oneer, or a one shot, which is one long tracking shot where you never cut away. And that entire sequence of the Mandalorian walking into the elevator, going up, dropping off the Klatooinian's head, walking back to the elevator, and then coming back down in order to then go find the covert. One shot, one take, no cut. Like the epic shot that's in Goodfellas, where they go back through the kitchen, which is similarly recreated in Swingers, another Jon Favreau movie. Her craft is just exquisite. I mean, what's I'm all in on BDH from here on out, guys.
She has good genes. She is the heir of Hollywood royalty. She has done now 3 episodes in the Mandoverse. She's been tapped for a 4th episode. She's going to do an episode and shoot an episode of season 3 of this. There have been calls on the internet to give her own trilogy. And I will be honest, I will echo those sentiments. She is very good. She understands the craft. She's also blessed in that she's been on both sides of the camera. So she knows what it takes to put out a good performance on both sides of the coin. And I think, to Jon Favreau's credit as well, Jon Favreau has also spent a lot of time on both sides of the camera, and it gives him really great instincts as an artist to know what needs to be done and where scenes need to go, and where scripts need to go, and where story needs to go. So I have said this to you. You guys argued with me. You said 2 for 3. I'm a 3 for 3. I love all of the Bryce Dallas Howard stuff that she has done thus far, and I will gladly subscribe to more and more and more.
Well, and I would assume everybody in our audience knows, but in case they don't, she also comes by it genetically. Her dad, Ron Howard, is one of the most renowned directors in the entire world. So she's grown up around in this world. Her dad directed Willow when she was like 6 or 7 years old. So she's been part of the Lucasfilm family her entire life. So that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, well, and Ron Howard is, for as much as Filoni has become a disciple and as, seen as the guy who's taking over for Lucas, the original disciple of George Lucas is Ron Howard. So, Ron Howard worked with him as an actor in American Graffiti, and from then on out, as he started to direct movies, all the way back in the day to, Splash, Ron Howard has always sat under the learning tree of George Lucas. So,
and also,
the lineage is there.
Also, not to mention that movie called Solo.
Oh, right. Solo. #, make Solo 2 happen.
Please.
Let's dive into some of the elements that we've dropped. We kind of dropped hints at the beginning here, and just break it down a little bit. We'd be remiss if we didn't spend a couple minutes in the butcher shop. It was that opening sequence was so bloody satisfying. Satisfying in that it was exciting, and bloody because it was also bloody as well. Within minutes, Mando is wielding the Darksaber, clumsily, I might add, and is tearing through Klatooinians like a hot knife through butter. I was so into that. Mark, what were you thinking as he was engaged in Mortal Kombat with the pig dogs of the Star Wars galaxy?
In all honesty, my first thought was, well, there goes everyone's theory that Disney is no longer going to do anything that's gratuitously violent. You've heard calls for, why isn't Boba Fett doing this kind of stuff? They've lost their spine. They're not going to do it because it's got to be too kid friendly. Exhibit A right there. It was great. The callback to I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold. People thought that was carbon freeze or carbonite. Nope. It means I'm just going to straight stab a vibra blade into your chest, half you, then decapitate you. It was a great scene. I could do with a lot more of that style of Vader hallway, Mando chopping people up. That's my kind of Star Wars right there.
Yeah, I I loved the callback to warm or cold. Kind of just it just immediately his mouth opened and I was saying it along with him. It came right back there, and his maintained sense of honor. I mean, I think the thing about Mando that I think some of us are responding to a bit more with Din Djarin than Boba is his character is just so much better defined. And I don't think he even needed 2 seasons to do it, but he's had the benefit of 2 seasons, and so his sense of honor, where he tells the Clatoonians like, "My money is for this head in a duffel bag that I got here. There's Republic credits back there that are all yours. I've got no quarrel with you." He goes up and he's got a shot at another job with the people who hired him, and he's like, "Nope, I just want to go find my covert." Like, he's very focused, and then he's also very focused obviously on his foundling, on Grogu, which we'll come back to. um Brian, what did you think of that whole opening sequence?
Yeah, you don't you kind of get the sense at certain times that Mando's changed his personality, or at least his approach with some stuff, that Grogu made him go through a reckoning of some sort. No, like not really. Like in the very first episode of The Mandalorian, he cuts a dude in half with a door, and in this one, he cuts a dude in half with the dark saber. Like he's even that much more ruthless. He's still the same guy, and I love that. I love that I don't know, like he's got this whole new world. He's had his world view expand, and he keeps going back to what's comfortable to him. And he's clearly well off financially at this point, which is something that's been a little bit interesting to see too. He's only doing it because he doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah, I mean, I I just feel like it's his worldview has only been strengthened by his relationship with Grogu, and we'll talk about that in like literally 60 seconds. When we can talk about it with him and his covert. But I think we'd be remiss before we go into the covert not to mention what I think is one of the coolest Star Wars environments that we've ever seen, and most certainly the best new one in quite some time.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're calling that circular environment that's moving around the living sun. It's been compared to the environment in the movie Elysium, the Neil Blomkamp film with Matt Damon, which I thought was a great movie. I know you guys have called it the Halo City, as we can hear the Halo theme in the back. I my jaw dropped. That was, again, tip of the cap to Bryce Dallas Howard. Like, that was one of the singularly most exciting cinematic moments that I've seen out of anything Star Wars, but certainly this series. My jaw dropped. I thought it was gorgeous.
So it's called a Dyson sphere. We've seen one before in Infinity War, that you can see that there's a rig that's built around the star, and it's meant to capture and harness the power of a star. That is pure science. It's pure science fiction right there.
Oh yeah, it's in Star Trek. It's in Star Trek as well. There's a fantastic episode of Star Trek Next Generation where they find Scotty. He's been off for any number of years, kind of put in suspended animation in a transporter, and they end up having to solve the problem of a Dyson sphere that's encased an entire sun. It's deep science fiction. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing. We haven't had a Dyson sphere yet appear in the Star Wars universe. So this was new, completely new, tonally speaking. It was breathtakingly beautiful. The way that it was shot, and the movement of the light and the shadow over the Dyson sphere, and as it like slowly moved over, was really neat. It was a cool locale. That's, again, we've talked about this in the first few episodes of this podcast. It's what we continue to love about Star Wars. It's very imaginative. It's ever growing. It's the flora and the fauna and the animals and the locations that continue to bring you back. It's interesting.
And yet it also gave a nod to, as Brian's talked about before, the Family Guy Star Wars episodes where, apparently there are no railings in space. So,
they said we would be leaning all day.
Exactly. So, Mando's walking down. He nearly trips and falls. Now, granted, when he's training with the Darksaber, we see he's got his jetpack on, so he can save himself. But, as he hobbled down, I was like, you'd think there'd be some safety railings so that you wouldn't just like fall off the planet.
Yeah,
clearly, as you know, to quote another movie that pokes fun at it, you know, it's not, in Clerks. This is clearly a non-union job in building the Dyson Sphere.
Good call. Good call.
But let's talk about the Mandalorian. So he makes his way down into the covert. We find that the only living survivors of the Navarro covert from after they helped save Din and Grogu are the Forger, and we actually get his name this time. We knew there was a Mandalorian who was voiced by John Favreau, who had also voiced in the cartoons, had voiced Pre Vizsla. This is apparently a descendant of Pre Vizsla named Paz Vizsla. And the two of them have holed up here on the Dyson Sphere, and Din tries to make his way back in to be with them. And we learned so much, or got so much reinforced into canon, about the fall of Mandalore and the role of the Darksaber. And it didn't feel like cheesy exposition. It was embedded within Din actually learning more and understanding more and training with the Darksaber. I thought that they handled, you know, without having to play Captain Exposition, you know, Rick Flag style on Suicide Squad, where it's just explained to you. It felt very well entwined and really exciting.
Yeah.
You know, Mark, what's your take on the mythology and the mythosaurs of Mandalore here?
So this was it was a perfect balance. It was the perfect form of edutainment in that if you watch the Clone Wars and you know the history with Tar Vizsla and Pre Vizsla and the Darksaber, this was just a wonderful, fantastic Easter egg for you. And it was just another chapter in like Mandalore 101. However, if you never had the benefit of seeing anything animated, there was enough backstory and enough exposition in that short little clip to give you an idea of what you were actually watching. And it was just so well done that it was either the perfect Easter egg or just a really good understanding as to what the Darksaber was and the mythology of it and how it is so much more than just a lightsaber. Again, this is what made this episode so great was Bryce Dallas Howard. The way it was written, it was a very good episode, which leads me to say, and again, somewhat of a little critique, why are they able to write this episode and this character and this narrative so well? And I think that in some ways they have been struggling with really great episodes of the Book of Boba Fett and some that are just tonally like way off the mark. Brian is shaking his head because he disagrees with me. That's okay.
I don't necessarily disagree. I think that there is a lot of story still to come, and I think part of it was expanding that story into 7 episodes, 6 episodes plus this Mandalorian one. I think we're going to get really rich and heavy in lore and everything else in these final 2. Call me a drinker of the Kool-Aid, call me whatever. I think that they expanded the story a little bit too much, but I don't think that doesn't mean that there's going to be any depth when we look back on a full 7 episode run.
I love the fact that they've fully acknowledged the history of the Darksaber and talked about Tar Vizsla and about how, you know, he was a Mandalorian Jedi, which, you know, sounds like a paradox. And I think what's interesting too is it really, I think, reinforces for Din that, you know, it doesn't have to be black or white. It can live in the grays. I mean, we've talked about, you know, how a lot of people didn't necessarily like living in the grays in Last Jedi, but, you know, I think that what was interesting to me in hearing, you know, hearing the Forger talking about the failures of Bo-Katan and talking about what a true Mandalorian is versus not a true Mandalorian, a lot of it had echoes for me of the same failed dogma of the Jedi, and Din calling that out the same way when, you know, the Jedi aren't supposed to have attachments, but that's core to who we are as Mandalorians. And by the same token, you know, the Jedi have their code of honor that allows them to be able to protect people as well. I'm excited to see, you know, being a child of both worlds, you know, what this holds for Grogu and Din as his kind of adopted protector. I mean, Brian, what resonates for you here?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then I kind of got distracted by the talking about the writing, but the exposition didn't feel like exposition because this was all brand new news to Din as well.
Right.
A lot of people spend a lot of time with their worldview being shaped by who's around them, what's around them, what they're being told. They don't know the complete story. Now, the Armorer is coming at it from a completely opposite side of Bo-Katan, but all he knew about the Darksaber was A, what Moff Gideon wanted him to know, or B, what Bo-Katan was willing to tell him, because she didn't want to tell him a whole lot of information, because Bo-Katan, not exactly, like, she was a friend, but not exactly, especially not at this point, because Bo-Katan wouldn't, I mean, she doesn't want Din to have the Darksaber. Din doesn't even know if he wants to have the Darksaber. He's kind of just stuck with it right now. So he begrudgingly uses it now, especially since he doesn't have his spear. But him learning about what the Darksaber is, what it means, where it came from, was all brand new news to him, and therefore brand new news to a lot of the audience as well that haven't dove into the animation. But it was very well done. And then they give us that the Night of 1,000 Tears. And when you were talking about Paz Vizsla, it was revealed back in season 1 of The Mandalorian, and I'm trying to remember how I knew this. And I did a fan event where Filoni and Favreau were there, and we watched the first 3 episodes of The Mandalorian, which was the day after the premiere of it. And that must have been when Favreau talked about his character being named Paz Vizsla, because I can't think of any other time that I would have heard it. But the fact that was thought through and paid off to that extent, I thought was really cool. And getting Favreau back to voice him was obviously really, really fun as well. But that's all super interesting stuff.
Yeah, to see the Night of 1,000 Tears as well was really, really interesting. I mean, it's the first time we've seen live action Mandalore, and seeing it being destroyed by the TIE bombers with what looked like, nuclear blasts.
Mm-hmm.
And then, again, tip of the cap to Bryce Dallas Howard and the fact that she was in Terminator Salvation. We get a brilliant shot of Imperial probe droids and K2 Imperial soldier droids walking the grounds looking like the Terminator, looking for and exterminating any Mandalorians they can find. The shot was straight out of James Cameron's first Terminator movie, and it was such a cool callback, but at the same time all felt like it was within Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Like you guys said, if you hadn't seen the animated series, if you hadn't seen the Clone Wars, it was still really cool. But if you had, that structure, that Mandalorian structure that is blown up, we've seen it in prior episodes of the Clone Wars, and in especially in the last season when Ahsoka goes back and takes on Maul.
Yeah, Mike, you started the episode by saying we're not going to do an Easter egg because like the whole episode was one big Easter egg. This 5 minutes was just chock full of stuff.
It was a basket of eggs.
Yeah, if you were a fan of the Clone Wars, this was like just chock full. Brian and I talked about this too, and I don't know if you had considered this, but she mentions if we weren't exiled to Karlak, we would have died in the Purge. Like
Concordia.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if we hadn't been exiled, we would have died in this. And obviously Bo-Katan was also gone because she, like, this is Poke's Maul, so she like fled the planet to like run away after Pre gets his head chopped off. But I thought of this and I was like, wow, what a cool little thing. It gave me pause and to look at the Armorer, and she has horns on her helmet.
Yeah.
It is very likely that during the Civil War, she was an adherent to and a follower of Maul, that she was one. And it makes so much sense because she knows Pre Vizsla, she knows the Darksaber, she was a member of Death Watch. It makes so much sense. Why don't any other Mandalorians have that on their helmet so far that we've seen? And there's only one time that we see that in canon, that the Mandalorian helmet is altered to have those spikes. And those are the people that are kind of like the personal guard of Darth Maul when he rules Mandalore. Those like little Easter eggs like that just made the episode something special for those hardcore diehard Star Wars fans.
And I would like to take that theory one step further, that not only is she not with our potential thoughts of this crossing over with Crimson Dawn and everything else happening there, that aside, she was on Concordia for a reason, like you said, Mark. And I think it's very possible that she's the character of Rook Kast, who was the friend of Bo-Katan when she was part of Death Watch, and then part of the Siege of Mandalore that was part of the Maul followers. She's a Mandalorian. She has purple hair. She used to remove her helmet when she was on Mandalore as part of the Siege of Mandalore. If she is that character of Rook Cass, that would make sense why she was so familiar with the fall of Bo-Katan Kryze, and B, why she spoke with such contempt in her voice, because they were legit like best friends when they were part of Death Watch. If that's her, it would make a ton of sense.
I love that again, the gray areas here, where if you watch the Clone Wars, you think that Death Watch are bad. They're with Maul. They are responsible for a whole lot of heartache for Obi-Wan Kenobi. They are not the good guys in the Mandalorian Civil War. But then, you know, to hear it from this perspective and knowing that they found Din and they took him in and they took care of him and they've brought him along, and then they've sacrificed for him. They've sacrificed their entire covert for Din and Grogu.
Yep.
It's pretty interesting to see that, you know, it's Obi-Wan's, you know, it's Obi-Wan's words once again, you know, being proven. You know, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to are based upon our own point of view.
The one thing that was really cool that I absolutely loved is the zealotry that accompanies this sect of Mandalorians. Even if they were at one point in time Death Watch took their helmets off. They were not that devout. And I think to myself, and this was something I gave a tremendous amount of thought, is why are they this way? Again, if you go and watch the Clone Wars, Duchess Satine started to take Mandalorian this peaceful diplomatic route. And this was the group that said, this is going to lead us to ruin. That's what Death Watch was. We are a warrior class. We are meant to be soldiers. We are not meant to be pacifists. We're not meant to be neutral. We are to be feared. We are to be respected. Satine and her way of thinking, I mean, again, like this is me playing really fast and loose and being very subjective with this point of view, but it was folly that Satine wound up being killed. Maybe she should have had a little bit more Death Watch in her. Maybe she should have had a little bit of more of Bo-Katan in her. She would have been a little less trusting of individuals. She would not have fallen the way that she did, and she would not have been killed. That said, the Death Watch and the way they are now, this philosophy is following the Night of 1,000 Tears, the realization for this sect that if they stray at all from, and the whole thing is, this is the way in which we will serve. So many people say that, right? It's like, oh, it's badass. This is the way. But it means, I believe, quite literally, this is the way that our Mandalorian race will survive. We do not take our helmets off because it leaves us vulnerable. It leaves our flesh vulnerable for attack. It has nothing to do with concealing one's identity. It has to do with being impervious. And even the spear, she says, these weapons leave us vulnerable. Therefore, I will melt it down. The whole philosophy that they are adhering to, the zealotry that they are adhering to, is because they are a dying race of people. And they need to do everything to preserve their way of life. Like, they're even taking on foundlings to try to pass on the philosophy of Mandalore, because there's not a lot of genetic Mandalorians anymore around the world. The only ones that exist anymore are ones that were in exile during the Purge.
It's more than survival, though. It's like, it's building Mandalore back up. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's part of making it come back. Like, they can't rule the galaxy again with 4 people.
You were 100% right. I mean, all of that stuff is tied together. Yeah,
it's not a cult. It's a zealousness that's pretty remarkable.
Well, lest we forget,
Din still wants it. That's the most interesting thing to me, is Din still wants it.
Yeah, like, he's bummed out when he goes, but I love that he was honest. I love that he has his code of honor. And so after he defeats Paz Vizsla in the duel, and they're both asked to take the creed, and the Forger asks him, have you removed your helmet? And my gosh, he took his helmet off, what, twice last season?
Twice. Yep. To get the Imperial codes in episode 7, and then for his son to see his face in episode 8. Because when IG-11 saw him, it didn't count. Mark, I apologize. I've interrupted you twice in the last 3 minutes.
It's all that he's ever known, and so therefore it's important to him. He is a foundling. So this is very important, because so much of his identity and his life is tied into this creed. He believes in it because he was saved by Death Watch. He was saved by these soldiers. And so it's so obvious that his love and his loyalty is to this sect of people that, I mean, he grew up with them. Let's be honest. He grew up with them. So it's, it's cool stuff. But then again, these are the deep cuts that we appreciate as hardcore fans. And if you're a casual fan and you're watching it, it just, again, it really is cool the way how laconic he is. And it's just great stuff. Love it.
So let's actually stay on that and talk about everyone's favorite billion-dollar foundling. Grogu, without even actually being on camera in this episode, played a huge role. All the emotions, down to the little package that's made up that Din takes with him from the forger that he's going to give to Grogu is shaped like Grogu's head. But what's in the bag, guys? When the forger says, she smelts the Beskar spear and says, what do you want? This is for armor. What do you want made? And he says, I want armor for my foundling. I want armor for, I want for Grogu. Like, is he going to go give him like his own, like, are we about to see like a full on like mini armor clad Grogu?
It's mithril. Yeah, it's mithril, man. It's chainmail.
They put to rest my concerns immediately. Like, you can go back to, it was the Mando. I think the very first time I was ever live with you, Mark, was the Mando Monday for the season 2 finale.
It was.
And I said, I think the show, The Mandalorian, is over because The Mandalorian has become to be known as the Baby Yoda show. And then I thought Din's story would continue in the Book of Boba Fett, Rangers of the New Republic, Ahsoka, whatever was coming there, because we were just going to pretend like now Grogu's been taken to Luke's academy, and we were just going to pretend like Grogu never existed. We spent 8 minutes with Din before he brings up Grogu. He's telling, yeah, I'll help Boba Fett the second I go see my little friend. Like, we're not living in this world where we pretend like Grogu doesn't exist. And that makes me so, so happy.
Well, I'll ask a bold question. We've all, everyone this whole time has assumed that, they call him Mando, that Din Djarin is the Mandalorian and is the title character. Is the actual Mandalorian that's going to have this arc in this, is it Grogu?
Oh my gosh, man. Yep. That would be crazy.
Like, again, if we're going to throw out some wild Star Wars theories, I think Brian's theory that Boba Fett is ultimately going to fulfill the prophecy and rise from Mandalore to unite the clans. Din is the obvious choice from the beginning. That would seem to be his natural path from going from foundling to bounty hunter to unexpected leader to ultimately the triumphant leader. But is Grogu actually the chosen one? Is he the one who's going to come from the depths of Mandalore and ride the mythosaur and ultimately bring back the glory years?
That would be great.
I mean,
I don't know if I'm willing to make that leap, but I love the kid being the title character. I love it so much. But like I said, I'm just simply glad we're not ignoring his existence.
I love the fact that we may actually see him. I've seen it floated about, and it's a crazy thing to think of, but I was going to ask it at the end, but I'll ask it now. Do you guys think we may actually get to see Luke?
Well, what do you want? I hope so.
Like, no, for real. Like, do you guys think that we'll see Luke again when Mando goes to deliver his tiny package to his little friend?
Well, so the actor who plays the body double for the season was in this as a Rebel pilot.
Yeah, he was one of the 2 X-Wing pilots at the end.
So it's not him. If we do see him, it's not him. Brian, cover your ears. I hope it's Sebastian Stan, and that's the oh crap level thing that we get from the end of this show. Yes, give me more Luke Skywalker always. Brian disagrees because he's seen the Skywalker saga enough, and so much of Star Wars, he's right, has been dedicated to Luke Skywalker. We don't need any more Skywalker. Do I want more Skywalker? Of course.
Max Lloyd-Jones is that actor that was the Rebel pilot that was the stand-in for Luke at the end of season 2. I'm not anti-Luke Skywalker. Like, if we get Luke, I'm good, but I'm more interested in who could potentially, like, if you tell me Luke Skywalker is going to join an army to fight with Boba Fett, like, that's those are things of legend. But if you also tell me in what we've been given now that Ben Solo is going to fight in the army of Boba Fett as part of the Academy of Luke Skywalker at this time, or potentially the Knights of Ren when they were part of the Jedi Academy with Ben Solo, like they could take this. I think we could see Luke's Jedi Academy without seeing Luke himself.
I think Ben's too young at this point, though, right? I think at this point Ben would be about 5 years old. Ben would be about 5 or 6 years old.
I guess
so
you're
if
right.
you assume, because if the timeline is that this is approximately 5 years after Jedi,
He's
let's assume that
yeah.
So let's assume that Leia and Han, I believe Leia and Han hook up pretty soon after the Battle of Endor, and let's say that she is with child quickly. Then
get your logic out of here. Let my mind run for a little bit. Come on, man.
Well, but
Brian,
yeah, but again, how old,
correct.
well, he's actually probably still later, right? Like, I mean, again, it's 30 years between Endor and Force Awakens, and he's not. Do we think that Kylo Ren's supposed to be 30 years old by that point?
Late 20s, I would guess.
25. Like, you're right. He's 8 years old at the absolute most. I guess I really should have done the math and just didn't. I just let my dreams run wild.
No, that's just me doing nerd alert. That's just me and my geek math. But
you could see a youngling Ben Solo though. That would be possible. That's just an Easter egg. I mean, I don't think you're going to get any action from him, but like that could be just a little like carrot to the fans to say like, here's a 6-year-old Ben Solo.
But I'm more intrigued by what Brian was just saying about, like, I'd love just like a quick nod from Luke would be enough to like carry me for years. But the prospect of former enemies, Luke Skywalker and Boba Fett, and there's just a nod, and it's like, it's almost like a, nothing, I grabbed you with my ropes. It was nothing personal. I was being paid. I got nothing against you or Han. And Luke's like, the kid tells me you're good, I'm good, and they just kind of like hug it out. And then one rides a Rancor, and the other one looks at him and goes, "Oh, I fought one of those." And then they go off into battle. Like that's literally what we've been talking about that Rodriguez has done. Like those are the stories that we told with our action figures, right?
Yeah.
Brian's got a huge smile on his face. I gotta know what wheels are turning for you, bud.
The potential of this entire thing, like seeing Luke's Jedi Academy, because he says he's gonna join Boba Fett, but first he has to go see a little friend. Like, we are going to see Grogu again in this show, and I'm so stoked about it. Like, I think we have to.
You don't think it's gonna happen off camera? Someone rained on my parade, and they were like, "It's gonna happen off camera."
No.
I don't think you can do that. I think it's like Chekhov. Like, I think. Sorry, Brian.
The mithril, like the thing forged for him is going to save Grogu's life somehow. Like, it's all gonna come together. And I'm going to do a live timestamp, 45 minutes, gentlemen. And we haven't talked Naboo Starfighter yet. I'm
about to take us to Naboo, but I'd be remiss not to say that, like, I think it's like, the playwright Chekhov said, you don't show a gun on stage unless someone's going to fire it. So I don't think that you name drop Grogu and we don't get him. But I digress. So I found it interesting. We talked earlier about the Mandalorian's travels. He goes back to Tatooine. He needs a new ship, so he goes back, and apparently Machete handles Rancors, and Mando flies coach. Thought that was pretty interesting. He takes the Star Cruiser over. Wonderful comedic moment where he had to empty all of his weapons before he got onto the Star Cruiser. He's like, weapons are my religion. And the droid's like, I don't care, bro. Take them. It's kind of like when you fly now. It's like, that's all well and good, sir. You're going to wear the mask or we're going to leave you back behind.
How long that takes was comical. Like, it was.
The
longer it went, the funnier it was, and the more okay I became with the whole thing. Because I thought, like, we're gonna put the Darksaber in this thing, and somebody's gonna steal the Darksaber, and like it all just ends up on Tatooine just fine.
No, it was every whistling bird had to drop in there. I was scared to death that he was gonna open the thing up and the saber wasn't gonna be in there.
That wasn't going to happen. He knew everything that was in there.
I know, but I was petrified. But
he was very clear about that.
We got the brilliance of Amy Sedaris in this episode. Pelimato, like, I used to like her, but she was kind of like half on my nerves. She steals the whole second half of the episode in this. guys, she's on like, you know, Bumble for Jawas. Like I dated a Jawa, very furry.
Her speaking Jawaese, like laugh out loud funny, just watching it happen. Like I've been on record saying she drives me absolutely insane in The Mandalorian. She was great in this episode.
Change of heart for you?
Yeah, oh, an absolute change of heart. I love Peli in this episode. I thought she was great. She also came with a BD droid, which I loved. And we also we've learned that womp rats were no bigger than 2 meters, but like 2 meters is big, man. We've seen a womp rat now, and that was a monster thing. It's a rodent.
They are rodents of unusual size.
Yes. Thank you.
They are legit, and I'm glad that you got that reference.
Whoever has the Princess Bride on their bingo card, you can cross that off.
If we need to get a Princess Bride reference in every episode of Babu's going forward, challenge accepted.
I am the Brute Squad.
I thought she was great. I thought the droids were great. I love that she's confirmed that incredibly, you know, after the fact, she has R5. And it was pointed out, a really great Easter egg is that there's a hole in R5's head where his motivator had popped out when he explodes in front of Owen and Beru's moisture farm.
Yep.
The two of them kind of doing the whole American chopper thing, building the N1 starfighter, I thought was a whole wonderful sequence. I love that we saw just how far Mando's character has matured, though. For as much as his core hasn't changed, it was don't let those droids touch my Razor Crest the first time he met Peli, and this time he's working with and complimenting the BD droid for helping him to build the starfighter. I thought that all of that was wonderful, but you know, guys, I've kind of buried the lead there. He's flying an N1 Naboo starfighter, hand built for the Queen of Naboo, and it's apparently faster than a fall there. Like, she's just throwing Easter eggs at us left and right. You can't duck them.
And she sets up the entire, hey, the Pikes are really bad dudes. Like she just slips that right in there where they bring him whatever it is. But Mark pointed it out to me and helped me out that the thing that they bring him, basically the catalytic converter, is directly the piece of garbage that Han uses to prop the walls open in the dumpster in A New Hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really, not very well, mind you. That trash compactor did not stop.
So many Easter eggs. Like I legit gasped when I saw BD1 or the BD droid. Whether it's BD1, I'm far more interested if that really is the BD1. Like, is Cal Kestis on Tatooine because he's going to show up in Kenobi? Like, if you really want my mind to run, I can. But whatever BD droid it is, whether it's BD1 or not, he stole the show immediately for fans who were completely unaware of him. Like you said, Din says, thanks, little guy. He's had a change of heart when it comes to the droids. All of it just, I was geeking out. And they hold out the droid port. It's a perfect spot for Grogu. It's also a ship that Mando can no longer be a bounty droid in. He needs to become the king of Mandalore if he's gonna fly this thing. Like, to go back on what I potentially said earlier, without a Razor Crest, he can't take bounties. He can only take Grogu in that droid port.
Well, I might argue with that a little bit and say he could probably stack 3 or 4 Klatooinian heads in that back thing there.
Some people held out hope.
It's not 8 heads in a duffel bag. It's
just not bringing anybody
3 heads in a starfighter.
Yeah, that's fair.
Some people held out hope that might have been Anakin's Naboo starfighter. I was watching some stuff, and then I had to go back and look for myself. The designation and the scoring on the side. I mean, like, is it possible that stuff could have been changed? But it was different text, so yeah, it's unlikely that it is. But I mean, it's fun to speculate. You know, at some point did this ship wind up being flown back by Anakin early on back to Tatooine? Cool stuff. If you want to buy into that little,
I'm not that interested. I'm just interested in that ship.
Yes.
The Phantom Menace has had very little to do with anything else in the grander universe other than the introduction of Anakin. There hasn't been that, like, obviously Darth Maul, like, there's stuff within the Phantom Menace, but we got legit Phantom Menace Easter eggs in this. Not only did we get the Starfighter, we got the Bunta Eve pod race track. We got the broken emergency ramp. Like the gate was gone. Like, so they haven't had a Bunta Eve race since that one. I really don't know, but like I was legit losing my mind. 11-year-old me, Phantom Menace loving. I will say it. I love the Phantom Menace, especially the pod race stuff. Like that Naboo Starfighter, how fast it is. I saw a YouTube video where somebody synced it up to Highway to the Danger Zone. Like how fast it is. Everything they use to get away. Like the button when she says you'll, oh crap, what does she say? You'll evacuate your exhaust port or whatever she says. Like just your pants. Like it's so good. I was geeking out this whole episode.
You're a little too young for this, but I saw it synced to Airwolf, and it was everything for me.
That's awesome. Cool.
That's brilliant. I think Top Gun's better, but Airwolf, that's a specific callback right there.
It was like either you understood that TikTok or you don't. But if I had to summarize the whole sequence and the flight and the harkening back to the pod race, it would be one thing, gentlemen. I can qualify and quantify it in one word. It was just wizard.
Wizard. Who knew that we'd get that back, and then we'd get and again the characterization for Din. He's a kid at heart. Like it's like he's not afraid to like lean into his joy.
Yep.
All these other Mandalorians are so cold, and he has heart and joy in him.
This is so wizard, Andy.
Wizard.
Less green though.
Like he was a kid when he was picked up. So whatever pick whatever kids say nowadays, that's sick. Like whatever, man, that's really dating me because that's what I used to say. But like it takes him back to his childhood with how much fun he had in there, and the continuity that they're building by bringing Appa from Kim's Convenience back in, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee's character as the ranger who hates paperwork. Like I am so good with all of it. That
was going to be my next question, Brian, is, you know, what his character's name is. He's Captain Carson Teva. What he has been a through line that he just keeps following through. It's like the, you know, there's always that one cop that kind of ends up coming around. Like, where is he going to end up? Where is he going to come through? You know, that it's not just like the, oh, you know, every once in a while we run into, you know, we run into the, you know, the local patrolman. He's going to have to come in and play a real role somewhere. And I'm really curious as to like, what is it that his connection to the New Republic is going to bring? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I haven't really thought about it that deep, to be honest with you. Like you bringing up the fact that he just keeps on coming back and he's a recurring character. It's interesting. That
if Rangers of the New Republic was still happening, that would make the most sense to me of him being a full-blown main character. If that show truly is canceled, I think we're going to see a reduced role for him. But I'm still all for Paul Sun-Hyung showing up at any point because
but he's here.
Yeah, he's here, and
you know,
and I will see him in Ahsoka as well.
That would be cool. I mean, even if they're not doing a Range of the New Republic, like they've known this whole time that they've been making Boba or prepping for Boba, they could have cut him out, right? So I mean, even if his whole payoff was supposed to be Range of the New Republic, like they know it's not happening. They didn't have to keep him here. But he was obviously in the Frog Lady. He obviously was in the Frog Lady episode, chasing Mando, and then saves him. He pops up again later in the season when he actually goes and he sees Cara Dune and asks her if she lost anybody, you know, in the destruction of Alderaan, which is like a, what do you think, dude? The whole planet's gone. So clearly, like I feel like he's coming through, and it's like the detective that pops up, or the reporter in the Incredible Hulk. Like there's the one through line, and I keep wondering where's that payoff going to be. He's
got a massive Phil Coulson vibe to him, where he just up in everything, and eventually Coulson brought the Avengers together because he died. I really hope that that's not where we're headed. Like we would obviously need to build more story out for that to happen, but. Man,
He does. He keeps baseball cards. He has a baseball.
Yeah, I was gonna
card
say, I
Boba
want to
Fett.
know if does he have like a Wedge Antilles rookie card?
He does. He has Wedge, but he has a Boba Fett. He has a Boba Fett like lithograph card signed.
Steve, I heart Steve 0704.
Oh my goodness.
So obviously, you know, we're here to wrap it up. The end. Can't even speak. I'm so excited about it. The end of the episode is Fennec enlists Mando. She says, "You want to earn some money," and when she says that he'll be working for Boba, Mando says, "This one's on the house." But then he says, "I have to go visit a little friend first." So clearly, Mando's going to go visit Grogu. So he'll probably take an episode off. Maybe we'll get him back in the final episode when we go back to Boba for episode 6. But there's only 2 episodes left, and we've got a lot of stuff to potentially pay off. There's everything with the Pike Syndicate that has to go down. Boba is building up his army, so he's got Black Chrysanthemum, he's got the Mod Squad, now he's got Din Djarin and potentially Grogu. He's got Fennec. We don't know. He's got his 2 Gamorrean guards. We don't know if he's going to get anybody from his from the Sinister Six, as we like to call them here on the show, from any of the other bounty hunters. I have no idea what we're going to get in these next 2 episodes. There's just so much that's possible. I mean, what does your gut tell you guys, about what this might be, aside from, I think, Brian's really interesting theory that Boba has set out to become a crime lord, but may actually be on the path to the throne of Mandalore?
I have no idea. For once, I am speechless. I don't know. I know that, and I still firmly believe that whatever happens at the end of episode 7, I still, in my heart of hearts, believe that it's going to introduce Crimson Dawn as the true power behind the Pikes. I think the Pikes will be defeated. That's kind of like a given. And then I think when they are, and the last remnants of the battle will somehow crawl back to either Kira or someone at Crimson Dawn. And I think this is going to give us another series. I think much like Mandalorian season 2 gave us the Book of Boba Fett unexpectedly, I think we're in for a Crimson Dawn surprise.
I mean, I've let my mind run a little bit, maybe too much on this episode. But we've got a Filoni directed episode. I think we're still going to spend quite a bit of time with Din Djarin and whatever's going on there. I think that Ahsoka is going to make an appearance. That's where my mind is. I think Ahsoka is going to come up because I think Crimson Dawn is behind it, and I think Grand Admiral Thrawn is part of Crimson Dawn. That's my tinfoil hat moment of the week, and I am probably wrong, but if I'm right, you heard it here first.
That's it. That could be your Professor X moment, and guess what? I don't even care because I want it to be true.
Filoni's going to have something up his sleeve. The guy is way too ingrained. There's a reason for it. You don't bring back Bryce Dallas Howard, Dave Filoni, and Robert Rodriguez are the only 3 directors from this show that worked on The Mandalorian. They're the ones that are being entrusted with keeping that through line. And there's nobody more entrusted with keeping that through line than Dave Filoni at Lucasfilm.
And Filoni has the finale, or wait, who? Filoni's
Rodriguez has the finale.
6.
Okay.
Filoni has 6 and Rodriguez has the finale.
So we're getting a Filoni up. We're getting a Filoni.
Yeah. How cool is it that we can go this tinfoil though? Like we go back to Mando at the beginning and things are this big, and now it gets a bit bigger. And now with Boba Fett, it's just the universe is so big here.
Everyone dreams that Star Wars took on an MCU quality when it comes to interconnected stories. This is where we're headed. Jon Favreau founded the MCU with the introduction of Tony Stark and Iron Man. We're headed this way. All these shows, you've got to watch one to get the other, and I'm completely cool with it. If the Thanos of this Mandoverse is Grand Admiral Thrawn because he's at the heart of Crimson Dawn, it makes a ton of sense. Filoni coming this late in, I'd be willing to put my money on Ahsoka much more before I'd be willing to put my money on Luke Skywalker. As cool as that would be, I don't want Sebastian Stan to play Luke for reasons I can't even explain anymore. Like, I don't even know where I started. Now I'm so entrenched in that I'm just never going to go back on it.
It's just, you're too far in to quit at this point.
But if Filoni loves mythosaurs, dude. Like, if we're gonna see a mythosaur in this episode, like, is he going to potentially introduce that? Like, I don't know. If I'm putting my money on anything, again, I am likely wrong. I know nothing, but I've got my mind canon right now is Grand Admiral Thrawn's at the heart of Crimson Dawn, and Ahsoka's going to be tipped off there. And I don't know if Kenobi's going to be involved with this, but let's go crazy. I don't know. Grand Admiral Thrawn, Ahsoka, both get name dropped, and one of them seen in this show.
We're the thread. It's unraveling. We're starting to look like the meme from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We got the red strings everywhere. I mean, I might as well throw my tinfoil hat on here as well. We could get Omega by the end of this thing.
Yep.
Fennec actually, like, I saw a great meme where Fennec looks at Boba and is like, I knew your sister. Like,
I'm gonna keep my tinfoil hat's gonna be there. I'm leaving it on the side. I'm not putting it on this episode. We've done a lot of shows. This is the most excited and excitable I've ever seen Brian. Dude. And I'm here for it. Like, this is the quietest I think I've ever been, mainly because I have just been so entertained by the two of you and how excited that you are at this episode. I cannot wait for Wednesday. Let me just leave it at that. No tin hat coming out for me. Let me just say, I will have the popcorn. I can't wait for Wednesday.
Let me just go on record of saying, even if you believe what I'm saying, I am likely going to be wrong. Do not get mad at Jon Favreau or me or anybody if that's not what happens.
Just him. Just get mad at him.
Yeah, you can get mad at me. I'm cool with that. Especially if you really, really hate me, just share the podcast with other people that might hate me.
Be like, this guy's a jerk.
Yeah,
listen to this and listen to the whole thing and
share it with everybody.
Yeah, and subscribe to it. He's such a jerk.
Yeah, like and subscribe to it. And do it soon before Mark loses the goatee. You got to watch it while he's still furry. Furry.
My Rocky training is still my Rocky training is still happening. Hearts on Fire is on replay still as I train for my 5K over at Disney. So there'll be some. I still have to climb the mountain, yell Drago, and then I can clean shave for the fight. If you had Rocky 4 on your bingo card, congratulations, you may have a bingo.
Dude, we are full of the 80s film references. What do we have? We had Top Gun, Rocky 4, Princess Bride, Willow.
We had Airwolf TV show, not movie.
Airwolf.
Yep.
We need a space helicopter.
We are men of a certain age. It's bound to happen.
Yeah. So tune in next week for more obscure 80s film and TV references. Get ready for another action-packed episode this Wednesday. We will be back next Sunday to talk all about it. Until then, may the Force be with you.
Always.